I'm running a little behind. I forgot something and I don't know what it is and it's bugging me. Damn, it's bugging me. Anyway, how's it going? Tonight. Oh man, it is Christmas Eve. Because tomorrow, 25 hours from right now, begins the summit talks with Jong Un and Donald J. Trump, the President of the United States of America. And that's just the start of what we've got to talk about tonight. It's been a big week. It's about to be a huge week. And just buckle up. So, are you tired of winning? I'm not. I am still not tired of winning. So obviously the big ticket item right now is that tomorrow at 9 o'clock Eastern time is the Singapore summit. I gotta fly in here, so if I start swatting, I'm not going crazy and neither are you, but not yet. Anyway. So, we may be less than 28 hours. I mean, because let's be real. 25 hours from now is the beginning of the summit. So, 20, 28, 29, 30 hours from now may actually be the end of the Korean War. That's gigantic. So, why is that such a big deal? It's not just that this isn't just a symbolic thing. So the Korean War has been going on for 70 years. A little over 70 years now. And that for the bulk of that time, we've been sending massive amounts of foreign aid to North Korea. And I'm going to talk about foreign aid a little bit in just a minute here. So Cameron gave me the idea how to talk about this tonight. Let's talk about, because there's a few different ways the summit can go. So let's talk about what a win looks like and what a loss looks like. My first inclination is to say that if Jong Un gets up and walks away from the table, that's a loss. It's not a total loss because we're going to come back. We'll come back to the table. It just is a thing. But, and yes, that would be interesting, babe, if the official end was 6/25 Yu-Gi-Oh, because that, of course, is the day of the armistice that created the demilitarized zone at the 38th parking lot. I mean, parallel. So, anyway. So if Jong Un gets up and walks away from the table, that's a loss. If Donald Trump walks away from the table, however, that is a win. Jong Un is not a master negotiator. But the Donald... Now, it's totally possible. In fact, I would go so far as to say probable that the Kimmer has read The Art of the Deal. So he probably... Or at least he's been briefed on it by his intel community. I would probably line my intelligence officers up and execute them if they let me walk into a summit meeting with Donald Trump without having at least briefed me on the major points from The Art of the Deal. Because, come on, guys. The man published a manual on how he conducts, not just how business negotiations are conducted or should be conducted, but specifically on how he successfully conducts them. Oh, no. Yeah, I'm wicked close to the camera, so when I move my foot and I kick the tripod, I apologize. Now, I fully expect, I really do fully expect that they are going to sign some kind of end of hostilities, that they are going to actually end the war tomorrow. And that very well may look like the war ending on 6/25. You know, hey, in 13 days from now, 2 weeks from today, will be the day that we celebrate the end of the war in North Korea, and that would actually be really cool and symbolic and all of that. So look for that. Now, when the war with North Korea is terminated, that's going to open up the possibility of trade, import and export trade with North Korea. And that is going to have a profound effect on the North Korean economy in general. And let me get a little feedback real quick. Is my background flashing in and out? It seems to be doing something funny in the monitor there. Just somebody give me a comment. Let me know if the background's doing funny stuff. If it is, I'll have to fix that later. Anyway, the end of the war in North Korea means massive economic development. Yes, yes, exactly, babe. So that's my loving wife Felicia Lowry commenting there. Kinks worked out, papers drafted, etc., etc. Yes. So my feeling is that there's not going to be a stroke of the pen tomorrow that says the war is over now. Okay, thanks, guys. I'll try to figure out what's causing that to happen. Lights, camera, action. Should be all working good, but there's something going on with the focus, maybe. Anyway, perhaps Donald. Oh, Legion, your Hangul script is too small. I can't quite read what it says. I think it says Tongil. Man, you got to remember, the monitor that I'm reading your text off of is like 15 feet away. Nord. Oh. Are you suggesting that that Donald's mother ate the onion? Is that what you're getting at there, Legion? Got it. Okay. So, the big win is the end of the war. Sudden, massive development in North Korea. And when I say massive development, I mean that they will see an economic boom that essentially washes away all pretext of socialism and communism, as information trade opens the crap out of the eyes of the North Koreans. And suddenly, the only way to keep up with the amount of pure wealth just sweeping like a tsunami of flippin' Scrooge McDuckian money bin like waves of coin, the only way to keep up will be to switch to a very free market, at least a much more open market situation, allowing yeah, the 0.001%, that's right. The only way to keep up with it will be to just massively expand the openness of the market, and we will see North Korea building gigantic factories, and frankly, we'll see a lot of first world countries start to lose jobs to North Korea in the way that we have lost jobs to China and India in more recent history. But that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. That will that will be that will mean drops in costs of trade goods and consumer products and retail markets globally. And now I get it. North Korea is fly shit on the map. The whole peninsula is the size of my sausage-like thumb. But you've got a densely packed population there that is literally starving for something to be done, for something to change. And as the second they get a taste of that danmul, that sweet, sweet syrup, they're going to go ravenous. And the as soon as I get a taste of that sweet, sweet syrup, I'm sorry, I got distracted by the comments for a minute. Without going into too much detail or violating what we would call NDAs, it is amusing to have this conversation. This conversation is especially interesting to me and a good chunk of my viewership, precisely because we have a particular interest there. So, yeah, I can't go too much deeper into that, but we have a particular interest there, and I've got a few people in the audience that share that interest, and we get a good chuckle out of that. Julie Haas, Julie says, wrecking the U.S. economy and job market. No, that's not the case. It will have a small effect on the U.S. economy and job market, but let's be real. Right now, the situation with the U.S. economy is we have a huge deficit in skilled trade labor. So there are more jobs available in the United States at present than there are job seekers needing those jobs. And then to make matters worse, and we're near full employment right now, but one of the factors that is making the mismatch of jobs and skilled labor a problem is even where people do have the skill and experience of a skilled labor trade, there's a lot of mismatch. So, in region A, you may have a lot of need for plumbers, but all the job seekers are electricians, stuff like that. And even more painfully true is that, and you can thank a Democrat for this, there are a shitload of mid to late 20s and early 30s kids out there that have graduated from college, and even with what would normally be a useful degree, but there's an overwhelming abundance of these feminist studies, African dance studies, these ridiculous culture studies degrees out there. And guys, the only people that are going to hire you for that degree are colleges. And the universities are suffering right now because so many people are onto them. They're starting to lose attendance, which means they're making cutbacks in programs, which means fewer lines of tenure, which means all your little shitty social sciences BS degrees, there's nobody to hire you with those. Now, if you are in your mid to late 20s and you've graduated college with a useless degree, sweetheart, it's time to go join the union and learn how to turn a wrench. It's time to go and get a job, because you have chosen a degree that is not in demand, and it never will be. It will never be in demand, because there's only For every one university, they may need to have 2 or 3 gender studies professors to keep up the charade that it's a legitimate discipline. And those are filled. The humanities do not have room for you. I'm sorry, that's off topic. So, North Korea, end of the war. And so we've been dumping foreign aid into North Korea for a long time. I was having this conversation with Cameron, the dapper young man that used to sit to my left. We haven't seen him in a little while. But we were talking about the summit and everything, obviously, and we got onto the topic of foreign aid. And he mentioned that one of the great powers of the United States is the checkbook. And I disagree. One of the great powers of the United States, especially from the negotiating and diplomatic perspective, should be the power of our extraordinarily large checkbook. It should be. But it no longer is. And this is the case for this, and this is the same argument for why we need to end the welfare state to the greatest degree possible at the highest rate of acceleration achievable. Our pocketbook, our checkbook, should be just about the most powerful negotiating tool we have. And it's not, precisely because of the extent to which we've used it. We are dumping foreign aid. And don't get me wrong, the amount of foreign aid that we're spending is a drop in the bucket compared to our national debt, national deficit, and our national budget. It does not make up an extraordinarily large part of the national budget. In fact, it makes up less of the national budget than our welfare programs, which, like I just said a moment ago, need to be slashed. Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think the camera is trying to auto-white balance, and when I put my frog belly white arm up, it freaks out for a minute. Anyway. So our checkbook is not as powerful as it should be or as it has been because of how much we're spending on foreign aid. And it's not just the amount that we're spending, it's the way that we're spending it. We are spending foreign aid. We are giving aid money to countries that don't deserve it, that don't need it, and that shouldn't have it in a lot of cases. North Korea has gotten to the point that it is, where we have the concern, where we have actually been faced with the existential threat of nuclear war with that country, precisely because Barack Obama, George, my eyes are too close together for a thinking man to vote for me, W. Bush, and and Bill, you might want to put some ice on that Clinton, actively subsidized North Korea's nuclear weapons program by trying to play the appeasement game. Oh, yeah. We'll buy dinner every day for the whole country. Sure. Yep, there it is. White balance. The camera's not respecting my privilege. It's a black camera. It actually is. Logitech, yeah, it's a Logitech C930. It's a black camera. So, anyway, we could get a hold of that if we were to rein in the foreign aid. Give you an example. This is a microcosmic example, but it's one of those examples that just really chaps my ass. So when I was in Afghanistan, there was a program going on over there, and the name of the program, this was under Barack Obama, was called Cash for Work. We paid the locals cash money, folding money in their local denomination, which was converted from U.S. tax dollars. We paid the locals cash money to do labor work. So, but here's the thing. The work that we paid them to do was to go out in the streets of their own villages around the market and shovel trash into the front end, into the bucket of a front end loader. So we drove down there in an armored bulldozer. We gave them shovels and rakes to clean up the trash. And when I say trash, I'm talking about candy bar wrappers, potato chip bags, banana peels, orange peels, apple cores, the skins of butchered animals, chicken bones, lamb bones, just and many and of course human feces, because, well, it's Afghanistan and that's what people do, is they pull up their man dress and they shit in the street and then they wipe their backside with their right hand and, oh, Mr. Soldier, no, dude, get your nasty ass paws away from me. Go wash your damn hands. So we paid them literally to take our rakes and shovels, our tools, while we stood armed guard to prevent the Taliban and Al-Qaeda from coming in and killing them for the crime of working for the Americans. We paid them cash money to shovel their own shit into our bulldozer so we could take it outside of their village. And within a day or two, the street would be just as nasty as when we had been down there to clean it up. Now, it could have been worse, I suppose. I guess they could have asked us. They could have made us actually run the shovels and pick up their trash, but the fact that happened, that we spent U.S. tax dollars to incentivize these people to clean up their own rooms, that's just a little bit, just a tiny little bit of what foreign aid across the world looks like. Now, like I said a little bit ago, what we actually spend on foreign aid is not a great sum of money. Ending all the foreign aid programs is not going to suddenly solve our national deficit or our national debt. And if you don't know the difference between the debt and the deficit, you're going to have to go look somewhere else. We're not digging into that right now. I'll say only that the debt is the amount of money that the country owes to creditors. The deficit is the amount of money above and beyond the amount of tax revenue that we consume annually, which is spent in the budget. Yes, our budget expects us to be $1 trillion in deficit annually right now. And that that's just depressing. Anyway, so so yeah, if we ended all foreign aid, that's not going to solve any of the actual deficit debt problems that we have in America right now. But yes. Legion says, Jordan Peterson's socialist nightmare. The government pays you to clean your room. That's absolutely right. And when I said clean your room, that I was absolutely, at some level, I was absolutely making reference to Jordan Peterson's work. Hopefully the fact that I've said Jordan Peterson 4 times now will get me a little more traffic on this channel. Because, whew, boy, I would cut a fool for Jordan's flipping Patreon numbers. What is he up to? $60,000 a month on Patreon right now? Damn, son. So, Fee asks, why do they care if my room is clean? That's a whole Jordan Peterson thing. You should not be out in the public world criticizing the way systems and structures operate until you've put your own house literally and metaphorically in perfect order. And he very clearly uses those words, in perfect order. So, oh, it doesn't, it does kind of sound like an allowance. Julie Haas says it sounds like an allowance. It does sound like an allowance. Because the fact of the matter is, we continue to pay those foreign aid subsidies, essentially, those foreign aid payments out to these countries, whether or not they do the work. In most cases, foreign aid is paid without consideration, and that's the problem. That's after that whole tangent and y'all's chatter distracted me. We get back to what I was talking about. That is the reason that our checkbook doesn't have the power that it should at this point, because the number of places that we're giving foreign aid to, which includes states that are actively hostile, we're paying foreign aid to. I mean, we're making foreign aid payments to Afghanistan, to Iran, to Syria. We are giving foreign aid to nations that support and sponsor terrorism, which means not only are we diluting the authority of our capacity to offer foreign aid and the usefulness of it as a negotiating and diplomatic tool, but through the foreign aid that we're giving away for nothing, we are funding the activity of the terror cells. Terrorism is funded by U.S. dollars, not because... this isn't some, the CIA created ISIS bullshit. This is some bizarre conspiracy theory. Money is fungible. If you dump money into a country that doesn't have money, they might buy food with some of it, and they might buy terrorist stuff with the rest of it. They might use it to buy fertilizer and whatnot to make suicide bombs. But here's the thing. If they had $1 billion to feed the country with, and they chose to spend some of that money on bombs, then what they were able to spend on food and bombs is less than what they're able to spend on food and bombs if we're subsidizing them. Because money is fungible. You cannot give Planned Parenthood federal dollars and those federal dollars not be spent on abortions and pro-abortion lobbyists. That is not possible. Because money is fungible. If you think that the federal government can fund Planned Parenthood without actively funding abortion, and that the federal government through foreign aid can fund terror states without also funding terrorism, then you don't know what math is. I've often said that a Democrat is a Democrat largely because they're bad at math. But if you think that you can give money to bad people and you're not paying for the bad actions of those bad people, you don't know what numbers are. And I just mentioned Planned Parenthood, which kind of makes me want to talk about it a little bit, but I'm not going to let myself go down that road in this particular show. I think I'm going to be talking about Planned Parenthood and the like, in probably a bluff later this week, because there was some interesting information recently about people being told how much the NRA spends on lobbyists, and of course the response was, oh, well, we should defund them. Just like the Republicans want to defund Planned Parenthood, we ought to push to defund the NRA so that they can't keep buying politicians. And okay, I guess I am going to talk about this a little bit. Okay, so the Planned Parenthood spends tens of times as much money on the buying of politicians, as it were, funding lobbyists, which is really what they're talking. When the lefties say the NRA buys politicians, what they're really doing is they pay lobbyists to go and ask politicians for favors, and that's just part of how politics is done. Here's the difference. Planned Parenthood spends a lot more. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'll have to look them up, but I'm tempted to say that on average, Planned Parenthood is spending nearly 100 times as much on on lobbyists to lobby the Congress for laws in their favor as the NRA spends. But there's another major and important difference. Planned Parenthood is funded with taxpayer dollars. The National Rifle Association is funded exclusively by private funding. No taxpayer dollars go to the NRA. The NRA cannot be defunded by an act of Congress in the way that Planned Parenthood can, because the NRA is not funded by taxpayers. The NRA is funded by guys like me, who paid cash money for a lifetime membership. By guys like me who answer the phone, every couple of months, every couple of weeks, or every month or so, and thumb up another 20 or 30 or 50 bucks here and there. I probably end up giving the NRA on average about 20 bucks a month toward things like the big one recently was working toward constitutional carry. Constitutional carry. I'm going to go ahead and use that to transition off this Planned Parenthood shit that I hadn't planned on talking about anyway. And it is already after 8:30. Good Lord. Okay. So in other news, and I might just have to cut this bit off and make it a separate segment and publish it on its own. I went to a local Republican Party meeting on Thursday evening, and I ran into Brian Kemp there, who is currently running for governor of Georgia. Sharp guy, funny guy, nice guy. And I've known Brian for, probably 4 or 5 years now. He's the Secretary of State here right now. I like him. And I told him Thursday what I'm about to tell you. I voted for Clay Tippins in the primary, because Clay Tippins is a Navy SEAL. So we had 2 military men running in the primary here, both of whom claim to be super pro-gun. I believe Clay Tippins when he says he's pro-gun. He was a Navy SEAL. He says he's pro-gun. Hunter Hill says he's pro-gun, and he's an Army Ranger. And while the Rangers are cute, I love my Army Rangers. They are just adorable. But Clay Tippins was an officer. And, I'm sorry, not Clay Tippins, Hunter Hill. Clay Tippins was a Navy SEAL. Hunter Hill was an officer. He was a commissioned officer in the U.S. Army. And as soon as I found out he was an officer, my first thought was, I think I'll just keep my good idea fairies in garrison as much as possible. I don't need them. We've got enough Democrats running around that are just dumb. So I think we can keep the Army's good idea fairy far, far away from my elected officials. But be that as it may, Brian Kemp swept the floor with all of them. And I'm going to give you a 90% certainty right now that Brian Kemp is going to win this time around. I think Eric von Hessler's assessment of Casey Cagle, who is Brian Kemp's only Republican competition at this point, they're in the runoff. Casey Cagle is the Hillary Clinton of Southern politics. So he's not going to, he chases the checkbook. He's too easy to buy, and that's pretty well known. So the other option is Stacey Abrams, black female Democrat, who's running. Okay, so Brian Kemp is running on Georgia is huge on business. Georgia's movie industry is growing, and we need to do something about the traffic problems. And those are his big things. He's all about small business and that kind of stuff. Stacey Abrams is running on the rollback and repeal of campus carry, and the expansion of various gun restriction laws, gun control laws. In Georgia, okay, we are in Georgia, and the black Democrat female is running against the small business champion with a record of small business championship, and she's running against him on a platform where she's actively pushing to restrict guns and to raise taxes. So, I mean, the debate is like, I want Georgians to have good jobs and get rich and be prosperous. I don't. What? In fact, I want to make it harder for them to get jobs and get rich and prosperous. Okay. You. That's a no-brainer. Plus, Stacey Abrams' idea of a good move to fix the traffic problems is to spend a bunch of money on building more overpasses and tunnels, and expanding MARTA. Brian Kemp's idea is to build inland ports and get all the tractor trailers off the road. One of these things is not like the other. So that's too easy. Yes, competition breeds excellence. That is correct, dear. And so while I was talking to Brian Thursday, I hit him up and I said, all right, Brian, I got 2 questions for you. Constitutional carry. And he just said, absolutely, hell yeah. I said, okay, never mind, we're done. I'm good. That's it. As soon as I said constitutional carry, and he didn't explain anything, he didn't he just said, yeah, yep, okay. Yeah, we're done. There is nothing in this world. There is no single issue of law or politic that is more important than the arms of the citizen. Brian Kemp is a constitutional carry guy. The reason that there is nothing on this planet, no single political position or matter of law, that is more important than the free carry of arms by an armed citizenry. An armed society is a polite society. Is because at your core you have the right to live and to try and be happy. You have the right to live and to live well. Freedom of speech, awesome. Freedom to practice your religion, awesome. So when the government lines armed security guards up outside of the hospital to prevent you from removing your child from the hospital, which is by government mandate ending your child's life, all the while another hospital is offering to try and save it. This isn't some backwards African tribal regime. This isn't in Cuba. This isn't Maoist China. This isn't North Korea. This happened a few weeks ago in the United Kingdom. The government murdered a child. And when they did it with armed police officers at the door, actively preventing people from saving that child's life. In this country, we'd have mowed them down. And I may do it with tears in my eyes when the time comes, if the time comes, and I pray that it does not. But when my government places my armed servicemen between myself and my child, then with tears in my eyes, I will end them. You put guns between me and my babies, and I guarantee you, my babies will not die before me. Wow. Okay, so I did not mean to get down that rabbit hole. We're running out of time. Obamacare. So Obamacare happened here, and I did not mean to go down the rabbit hole with about Charlie Gard, and I feel terrible that I can't remember the other little boy's name now. But anyway, I do want to talk about Obamacare for a minute before I shut y'all out for the night, because there has been an interesting development. Apparently, some 17 or 18 states, and I believe Florida, Legion, I believe Florida and Georgia are included in that. I know Texas is. Some 17 states have filed suit on the grounds that, absent the individual mandate, Obamacare, the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, is not constitutional. So, I'm going to oversimplify this to fit it into the short little segment of time that we have left. But basically, what happened was, Obama managed to get the ACA, the Affordable Care Act. We'll just call it Obamacare for the rest of this conversation. Old Barry O managed to get get Obamacare passed. Now, we all remember it was by hook or by crook. There was the Cornhusker kickback and the Tennessee turnaround and whatever. Basically, the whole legislation was done by bribery. And even with the bribes happening, even with the obvious corruption, the obvious vote buying, the obvious bribery, the obvious kickbacks, even with all that, it was still a 100% party line. Every Democrat and 0 Republicans voted for the bill. So it becomes law. Yes, exactly, Legion. So it becomes law, and then, of course, it immediately gets challenged on constitutionality. The thing about Obamacare that is unprecedented in American law is that nowhere else, with only one exception, has it ever been the case that American law was completely prescriptive. No other law in American history, except for one, I'll get to that, has ever, in fact, except for one, and I'll give a free Brushfire Mind mug to anybody who's watching right now that can tell me what that one other law that prescribed a mandated action in U.S. history was, before I talk about it in about 2 or 3 minutes. So if anybody can clue me in, if anybody can beat me to it, I'll send you a BFM mug. So only in one other case has the law mandated that people take a prescriptive action. Now, the constitutionality of the law was nope. With auto insurance, the law is not purely prescriptive, because you're not required to have auto insurance unless you have voluntarily entered into other preconditions. Same thing with federal income tax. Same thing with a driver's license. In all of those cases, they are preconditions to being able to take on a privilege. So with auto insurance, you don't have to have auto insurance if you don't own a car, if you don't own a home, if you don't drive, if you don't have a job. You don't have to pay federal income tax. You don't have to buy auto insurance. You don't have to get a driver's license. You don't have to have homeowners insurance. You don't have to have a federal ID. You do. You do have a federal ID, whether you like it or not. Nope, property tax, only if you own property. That Legion, MTV in your basic cable package is a matter of contract law, which is somewhat distinct from federal law. Okay, we're done. I'm accepting no more guesses. The Militia Act, which required all military-aged, able-bodied males to own and maintain, with ammunition, a rifle suitable for use in the conduct of militia activities. So yes, as of the time Obamacare was passed, it had literally been over a century since any prescriptive law had been passed in the United States, and that was the first law that was ever passed in the United States that was prescriptive in that way. So, yes, if you're a grown-ass man with hair on your face, you're supposed to own a rifle and be able to and have it ready to rock and roll. By the way, that is still actually the law in the United States. If you are a military-aged, and it is that sexist too, if you are a military-aged male in the United States, you are, theoretically, it's not enforced obviously, but theoretically you are supposed to have a modern, functioning rifle with sufficient ammunition to be called up for service in the militia. Yes, it is. Well, actually, no. It's not that it's unconstitutional to not buy an AR-15, but the law requiring you to own an AR-15 or something similarly equivalent is a law which is constitutional. Which is arguable in an interesting way because that law predates Marbury versus Madison, and to my knowledge has not been subjected to judicial review. But of course that's a whole nother argument, because I can make a pretty solid claim that the concept of judicial review is in fact itself unconstitutional. But we can get back to that in separation of powers in a completely different video. Obamacare is being challenged by 17 states right now, and the Donald is not he's not helping. Now let me be clear about what I mean when I say he's not helping. The tradition, the precedent, this is not contained in the Constitution, not required by the law, but has been an established traditional precedent for a very, very long time, and only broken with by a very few presidents a long time ago. It's been over 100 years until the most recent twist. When a federal law is challenged in court, the administration, because the executive branch is in charge of law enforcement, the administration defends the law. Even if the administration doesn't agree with the law, the administration defends the law in court. Yeah, totally. By the way, Legion, if you've got your AR now, or even just a good sidearm, bring your happy ass up here and I'll take you to the range, brother. Let's do this. Shit. I'm sure Steve would be thrilled to join us. And yeah, pretty much the whole BFM and Task Force Murder Machine would be thrilled to just have you up and hit the range. Love you. So, the administration always defends the law. But Barack Obama, when DOMA was challenged in the Supreme Court, did not defend DOMA in the way that every prior administration, whether they agreed with the law or not, defended it as a matter of course and tradition. Barack Obama did not defend DOMA. So, an interesting thing. Legion, you shouldn't have bought the F-150 today, man. Unless you got a killer deal on it. I told you, baby, I got my guy. I got my guy working on it for you, but, okay. I'll tell him that you beat him to the punch. I was looking forward to that finder's fee, baby. Barack Obama did not defend DOMA. And this was in 2011. So the fact of the matter is, Obama refused to defend DOMA when it was challenged in the court, even though he agreed with DOMA. Let me say that again. I know it's been said before, and I know if you're a conservative or if you can read, that you probably already know this, but just let me remind you. Barack Hussein Obama ran in 2008, ran his initial campaign on the claim, among others obviously, but his position was the support of traditional marriage. Barack Obama ran against gay marriage. But when he was running for re-election, he didn't believe he could count on the black vote, because despite all the promises of being the first black president and doing all this great stuff for black people, Obama did nothing for black people. He did nothing for black people generally for his entire 8 years, but more importantly, in his first 4, he did nothing for black people, and so he knew he couldn't count on the black vote the way that he had before. So he flip-flopped then on gay marriage. And if there's any doubt that the move on gay marriage was a political move and not a moral or ethical move, it's this simple. There is nothing as consistent in politics as the statement that Democrats segregate and Democrats are socialists. The only two consistent facts about the Democrat Party from the foundation of it is the division of the people, Jim Crow, the opposition of the civil rights movement, the passage of DOMA. Yes, DOMA was passed under Bill Clinton. DOMA, the Democrats own DOMA. The only things consistent about Democrats are identity politics, the divisiveness of identity politics, Jim Crow, Defense of Marriage Act, so on and so forth, the creation of victim groups, and the sympathy for socialism. But because Obama needed the gay vote to make up for his drop in the black vote back in 2011, and to get that, he refused to defend DOMA before the Supreme Court. Now that 17 states are suing over the constitutionality of Obamacare, which is now arguably unconstitutional because the constitutionality was determined solely on the individual mandate as the cornerstone of the legislation, whose constitutionality was determined on the argument that it is a tax and not a penalty. And if you were paying attention at all, you saw that Obama's lawyers argued that it was a penalty, and the left-wing judges literally fed them the argument of a tax over penalty, and they were very clear that hey, if you stop calling it a penalty and call it a tax, then we can judge this to be constitutional. Well, now that the Trump tax plan included the repeal of the individual mandate, then the cornerstone of the legislation, which propped up its constitutionality to begin with, has ceased to exist. Ergo, the law, the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, is arguably, I cannot say definitively, but it is arguably now unconstitutional. And 17 states are making that argument. And Donald Trump is refusing, the Donald Trump administration, Donald Trump specifically, is refusing to meet that in court and defend the law and uphold the law. And to cite precedents, he's citing that Obama established the precedent of the administration choosing to allow a law to be defeated without defense because of the way that Obama himself refused to defend DOMA in order to garner those votes. Isn't that just capital? And I'm going to leave you guys on that note. It's been a great night. I think I ran my mouth pretty fast and hard. I hope I got you an interesting conversation. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please, please, please share, like, subscribe, hit the bell, and I'll see you next week, live at 8 o'clock on Sunday evening. And until then, remember, if you build a man a fire, you'll keep him warm for the evening. But if you set a man on fire, he'll be warm for the rest of his life. Good night.